Hi, I'm Shanna Katz, Sexuality Educator, and I'm here with What They Are Asking to talk about this week's most popular question, which is if you could design a daddy or mommy training course, what are two or three concepts you would cover? Now, that's a great question, and before we delve into what concepts I would cover, I want to make sure that everyone's on the same page. So when we talk about mommies and daddies and littles, whether little boys, little girls, little genderqueer folk, anyone, everyone that's playing is 18 or over and can consent to the type of play that's happening. And sometimes that's just age play in part of a vanilla sexual relationship. Sometimes it's part of a kink relationship. It can happen in any way, shape, or form. But everyone is consenting and over the age of consent. So, moving on, what are some concepts I would cover? Well, first of all, I would make sure that the idea between regressive age play and sexual age play would be covered. Now, both of those are fine options, neither one is better than the other, and you can actually have age play that is both regressive and sexual. But we'd cover what the differences are. Regressive age play is a little bit more, I want to feel coddled and cared for, taken care of, feel loved. I want you to plan things for me, to tell me what to do. These types of players sometimes don't want anything sexual at all. They really just want to feel cared for. Versus sexual age play, obviously what it sounds like, it's sexual, and that's the 12-year-old that is a little bit more mature than he ought to be, and maybe his mommy is showing him the ropes and how to please a woman, or maybe it's the little girl that's naughty and gets spanked, and the spanking turns into something else. And again, you can have both regressive and sexual age play. But you need to communicate as a mommy or a daddy into what you're into, what you're looking for, what gets you going, and making sure you find a little that's looking for the same thing. Because if all you want to do is read bedtime stories and, give them stuffed animals and braid hair, then finding someone that really wants to be spanked and have their brains fucked out, then that's not going to be a good match. And on the other hand, if you want to, be the stern mommy and show your little girl, what happens to naughty little girls, and that's sexual, finding a little who just wants to color with crayons in the corner is also not going to be the best fit. So looking at those, figuring out what your wants and needs are, and finding a little with a similar set of wants and needs is really important. Secondly, I would say really defining what play looks like in public versus private. For some people, age play is this 24/7 thing. It is with them all the time. They help their little pick out clothes in the morning, and even if, the little has to go be a big and have a job and do all of that and not be in it, maybe phone calls involve the age play dynamic. Maybe when, you go out, the mommy or daddy orders for the little, sometimes even off the kids' menu. But for some people, that's really not what they're looking for. They just want to play with someone either in private or maybe in a dungeon or kink play space. And that's the only time they want the little thing to come out. And so before you plan a date to Build-A-Bear to help your little build the cutest little bear ever, which would be some little's like wet dream, literally, making sure that your little is okay playing in public. And vice versa, if you're not really a public person, making sure your partner, your little, knows that it's not okay to run up yelling mommy or daddy in the middle of a department store is a pretty good boundary to have in a relationship. And as far as talking about boundaries, I think that that's really important, and it goes both ways. And that's an issue we sometimes have in the kink community, is that the person who's in charge, supposedly, right, the dominant or the top, or in this case, the mommy or the daddy, asks the submissive or the bottom or the little to set, what are your limits? What can I not do to you? What can I do to you? What feels good? What doesn't feel good? But then we kind of leave out the conversation of what does the mommy or the daddy or the top or the dominant want, and what are the limits that they need to set? And the idea is that everybody should be having fun. Everybody should be, getting off and having a great time in any relationship. And so if your little, wants you to spank them and you're not into spanking, it's okay to say, that's a limit for me, or I can do this, but then I also need this to happen too. In the same way that if there's something you're uncomfortable with or really, really, really like and need to have as part of your relationship, it's really crucial to have that conversation early on. If you're really into diapers and maybe your little's not, talking about where you can compromise on that is a really great point. On the other hand, if you're not into diapers and your little really is, it's okay to say that's not really my thing, I'm okay doing it, or it's not really my thing and I'm not okay doing it. Because again, it's what makes you feel good about being in charge, about caring for someone. And something to note on that too is you can be dominant at a mommy or daddy, but you don't have to be. In fact, I have seen some very dominant littles with very submissive mommies and daddies. And that's okay. Again, negotiate that as part of your relationship, but if your little beats you up and is a brat and tells you, that they don't want to go to bed, and if you're feeling in a dominant role, that's great, and you can spank them or put them to bed or tie them up in bed, depending on what your relationship looks like. But if your little runs the house, your little runs the house, and that's fine too. So basically what I would cover is it regressive age play, sexual age play, or both? How do you feel about playing in public versus private? And how do you feel about playing in the community versus at home alone? Setting limits, not just for the little, but also for the mommy or the daddy. And getting your wants and needs met, getting what turns you on there. And maybe it's part of a costuming thing. Maybe, it's a Cub Scout and a Boy Scout leader. Maybe it's a teacher and a student. Maybe it's a sick kid and a medical professional type thing. You don't have to have that, but if that's the dynamic that gets you going, then great. And keep in mind, too, you can be a mommy or daddy. You can also be a nanny. You can be a babysitter. You can be an auntie or an uncle. So really figuring out what role best fits what you're looking for and communicating that. So again, communication is the number one thing here, but really looking at all the different angles of mommy and daddy play with the little of whatever gender you are looking for or currently have. Again, I'm Shanna Katz. This is What They Are Asking, and that was your question of the week.